I used to pay for therapy when I only had £35 to my name, and it used to cost me £35 per session. And the people around me used to say, I'm crazy, you can't afford to pay for therapy, why do you keep going? And I used to say to them a very simple phrase, I can't afford not to. At that point in my life, 8 years ago, I was so desperate and struggling with addiction, I had to go week after week back to therapy and pay that £35 if that's all I had in my bank. And I want to tell you, it was the best financial decision I've ever made, because in life you have your financial bank account, but you also have your emotional bank account. And it's my belief that you should take the money from your financial bank account and invest a portion of it into your emotional bank account. And that's what I was doing in those early days, is even though I didn't have much in my financial bank account, I was investing into my emotional bank account to get my mental health back on track. And now 8 years later, my life has completely shifted and changed. So in this video, I want to talk to you a bit about the benefits of paying for therapy and why it can be a really good decision. So the first thing I want to start with is there's no waiting list when you pay for private therapy. Typically, you can find a therapist that will see you within 24 hours. I've seen clients before. Unlike the NHS, where in the NHS you may have to wait 3 months, 6 months. Sometimes people have been waiting 6 years for trauma therapy. The NHS waiting times can be absolutely crazy. And the benefits of paying is that you can get that kind of instant support, instant help when you have the problem. Because sometimes if you're struggling with something, whether that's anxiety, depression, or addiction, who knows if that's still going to be there in a year's time, in fucking 6 years' time? Who actually knows? So it's good to get the support when you need it. Also, another really important benefit is that you get to choose your counsellor. Whereas the NHS, you may just be given any old counsellor and you're not really sure if you're a good fit with them. You may not get on with them. You may not gel with them. And they're typically going to be like a general, CBT therapist or something like that. So A, you won't get to choose who they are and you may not get on with them. And B, they're not going to be a specialist addiction counsellor. That's one thing that worked for me in my private counselling, is I went to a specialist addiction counsellor who knew about that specific thing, who could help me with that and achieve that goal, which was a massive difference to have a specialist rather than a generalist. And also, another really important thing is that you can stay for as long as you want. So with the NHS, you typically get kicked out after 6 weeks. And even if you get on with the therapist, you're doing really, really well. You're bonding with them after 6 weeks, or when the time comes to an end, they won't be able to continue. And even if it's the best person in the world, you just get kicked out because there's such a big waiting list. They have to make room for the next people, which is understandable, but it doesn't help you very much. So the important thing about private therapy and paying for it is you can stay for as long as you need. And yes, that costs money, but it's also important to build up that rapport. Like, I've been in therapy for 8-9 years now. And one thing I like about having a therapist, my first one was for 5 years, who I stayed with her. And you build up that rapport, you build up that relationship, and she knew a lot of things that have happened in my life. So when we had those sessions, we got a lot more out of it, because I wasn't going over the same old stuff, the same old trauma, my same old history, all of that, blah, blah, blah. They knew everything about me, they supported me for a while, and we could really hit the ground running. So it's really important to be able to stay for as long as you need in the therapy. That's a really important benefit. The next thing I want to talk about is having skin in the game. When you invest money, you're more likely to take it seriously, show up and do the actual work. And by paying some money, you have that financial accountability where you've actually got stakes and you understand, I'm paying money for this, so I want to get the results, I want to get something out of it, I'm going to show up, I'm going to put in the work. And for me, that was a really, really big benefit, is to be able to pay for and have that accountability. And you're less likely to just miss the sessions or not turn up to the sessions. You want to get out of it. And with a lot of clients I work with who struggle with drink and drugs, they say to me, Luke, I'm paying for the session, so I want to show up. I don't want to drink. I don't want to do drugs. So that part of that financial accountability makes a difference, that they want to get something out of the program. And that really helped me personally, is staying accountable to the finances, paying week after week, really made sure I showed up. I didn't miss it. I didn't rearrange. I had skin in the game. I was invested. I really, really wanted it. And that financial commitment made a difference for me and a lot of the clients I work with. Also, of course, it saves money in the long run. Think of how much money you spend on drink and drugs, not only in a weekend, that may be like £100 to £500 on a night out or over a weekend, not just the drink, but also drugs if you're doing that, also Ubers and takeouts and all of that kind of stuff, losing your phone, losing your passport or your driver license and stuff, all of the other stuff that goes around with it. So you save a lot of money in the long run by engaging in private therapy. It may cost you in the short term, but you'll make that back by saving it. If you think about me over the past 8 years, how much money I would have spent on drink and drugs would be literally tens and tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands, who knows. But now I've saved that by being sober, by having the therapy, whatever number I've invested in therapy, 10k plus or whatever, I've saved that by or I've made that money back either like easily and got a massive return on my investment by having the therapy and paying for it and investing it. And like one client said to me, right, they said, Luke, no matter what your program costs, it's cheaper than a divorce. And that was right. You know, it doesn't matter how much therapy costs, it's even worth it compared to the divorce, which is a financial cost, or losing your business, or losing your job, or even the phantom costs of the cost on your relationship and losing your partner or having your kids taken away from you, all of that kind of stuff. So it's money well invested. Another thing I want to cover is that when you have private counselling, you can work on your mental health issues like anxiety or depression or whatever else is intertwined, ADHD, whatever it may be, that's intertwined with your drink and drug use and the addiction. And you can work on both of them together. The dual diagnosis, you can have support for each one. But a lot of community programs or NHS, you'll go to the mental health team and they say, oh, we can't work with you, John, because you've got addiction problems. You go to the addiction team and they're like, oh, we can't work with you, John, because you've got mental health problems. And you're like, well, what am I meant to do? Like, it blows your mind. Like, literally, it blows my mind when I hear that from clients, that one place won't support them because they've got one problem, but they can't get support from the other team because of that problem, and they're just left ping-ponging between the middle, being like, well, you can sort out your mental health once you solve your addiction, and they're just stuck in this endless loop. But by having private therapy, you won't get turned away from that. I help clients with both of those things, the mental health side and the addiction side, and therapy specifically compared to rehab or AA and that kind of stuff. That's why it works so well, because it's a cycle with the mental health and addiction. You use drugs and drink to manage some of your mental health symptoms, but the drink and drugs make some of your mental health symptoms worse, which then means your mental health is worse, which is a trigger for your drinking, and it goes round and round. So oftentimes with clients, we need to work on both, and that's one of the really amazing benefits of having private therapy, is that you get to work on both of them. Look, if you're watching this video, then I'm sure you've obviously, like I was, spending thousands on drink and drugs, trying to manage it alone, wasting all that time, wasting all that cost, waiting on an NHS list. So if you're ready to take some action and get some help, I'll be happy to jump on a one-on-one call with you and talk you through how I could help you, how therapy could help you. Just click the link in the description below and book a free call in my calendar, and we'll talk through your situation and see how we can help.